People involved in politics can come up with all sorts of ways to pat each other on the back. In Texas, one of the biggest ways is an affair called Governor for a Day, and today it was Oscar Mosey's turn. Mosey is the president pro tem of the state senate, and when the real governor and lieutenant governor both are out of the state, it's traditional for the president pro tem to fill the void. For Mosey, this meant getting up on a makeshift stage at exactly high noon to take the oath of office from U.S. District Judge Sarah T. Hughes. Someone called it an historic occasion, but it really wasn't. It was just a big picnic out in the park. An Air Guard band played appropriate things like the Eyes of Texas. There were Oscar Mosey balloons, and even a special Oscar Mosey newspaper. But about all Mosey will get from this is a chance to tell his grandchildren someday that he served as governor of Texas, if only for a day. Jack Hill, Channel 8 News on the Move.
It began with the ticker tape parade in the heart of the San Francisco financial district. Leading that parade was Colonel Bull Simons, a man who led the Sante Raiders in their efforts to rescue prisoners of war, more than 70 of them held in that prison 22 miles from Hanoi back in 1970. As the ticker tape flowed down and as the balloons headed toward the sky, bands played, crowds cheered, and more than 200 Americans that had taken part on one side or the other in that Sante raid back in 1970 were honored in San Francisco. It was a luncheon time, a luncheon where Ernest Borgnine served as master of ceremonies. The raiders and the prisoners of war were entertained by Red Skelton, who knocked himself out to make sure he brought smiles to their faces. There were remarks by the wife of the governor of California, Nancy Reagan. And the featured speaker of the day, following Colonel Robinson Reisner, was John Wayne, and his summary kind of summed up the day.
I bet you did too. She needs it. Well, actually, you have to be satisfied when you shoot below par on this course, because this is really one of the 3 or 4 hardest courses we play all year.
You only have 3 guys that are under par. Can you foresee anybody tomorrow maybe having a hot round and catch you, Dixon?
Well, I think that Bob and I definitely have a big advantage because this is such a hard golf course. You don't expect to see a guy shoot a 66 or a 65, so I think if Bob or I shoot a good round, one of us should do all right.
So if you shoot even par tomorrow 70, you think I'll stand up?
Well, I don't know. I think that it might beat everybody but Bob, but you know, you can't try to beat a good player with even par, so I don't think I would take a 70. I'd like to go and shoot because I think he and I have a real advantage, and I think if one of us can shoot a good round, we'll win the tournament.
All right, the scrambling and the waiting and the wind, did that have anything to do with the score? I mean, you scored well, you know, even though you say you played bad, but the fatigue and the waiting.
Well, all these taken into consideration, I had a very good round today because on another day, I might have shot 75 or 6. I made a lot of saving putts today, but it was hard to keep a momentum going because you'd go for a little bit and then you'd have to wait for 10, 15 minutes before you could hit again. But fortunately, I was able to get a 71. I'm happy with the round.
All right, would you take a 70 tomorrow morning and stay in the clubhouse?
If it was blowing like this, yes, definitely.
Waking up in Terrell from a 20-year snooze wouldn't exactly give you a jolt. As I drove through these sleepy streets today, I saw homes that have been here for almost a century, like the Cartwright home, for instance, with its cypress columns and steepled roof. Terrell is definitely not ashamed of its age. In fact, they're so proud of being 100 years old, they're celebrating that century mark. This morning, Terrell's 15,000 residents put on a centennial parade, dressing the youngsters in traditional costumes, decking the storefronts with red, white, and blue, and doing just about everything to have a good time, short of breaking the law. However, Terrell's law had changed temporarily. You were thrown in the clink for even a blink. I was charged with wearing makeup unlawfully and condemned to jail with the rest of the first offenders. Luckily, our sentences didn't match Terrell's age. A century in this cell wouldn't be much to celebrate. For Channel 8 News on the Move, this is Martha McIntyre at the Terrell Centennial Celebration.
Where's the bowl? I don't know. Well, let's put one up. For the giving or withholding.
A vote at the election at which I was elected.
A vote at the election at which I was elected.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I congratulate Oscar.
The air was clear and...
The governor, there will be an opportunity.
Hello, Cap.
Newspaper they had given these people a quota than there is in the regular force. And let's talk about that. That's occasion. The question of whether the so-called or alleged collaborators should be prosecuted is one that should be decided, I think, after very careful attention to the individual case. And I wouldn't want to pass judgment.
Both cars showed a lot. On the tower side, the Cowtown Hustler also getting ready to go. They put those airplane-type starters back in the truck, lower the body, lock them down. The driver's just... I saw was flank those destinations and all transit ground and get those race cars down the quarter mile somewhere in the 7-second range. Robin's yesterday, as a matter of fact, end of the quarter mile, but it's still the Fort Worth, Texas car.
If you've never paid over 40 cents a gallon for gasoline, you might expect to within the next couple of days. According to rumors floating around the Exxon service stations in Dallas and Fort Worth this weekend, prices will be raised 3 cents a gallon come Tuesday, May 1st. The major oil companies, including Exxon, raised prices 2 cents a gallon earlier this month. And if Exxon raises it another 3 cents, the other majors can be expected to follow.
This is Jack Hill in Dallas. For American Petrofina, gasoline rationing is no longer something to talk about. It's here. And because of that, 23 of the city's FINA stations weren't open today as usual. The stations were forced to close on Sundays to conserve fuel. For the FINA company, it's the old story of supply and demand. In this case, the demand has outstripped the supply, which has brought FINA's gasoline inventories below minimum levels. So the company has begun to limit the amount of gasoline it will sell to distributors. The distributors are passing those limits along to individual stations, and as a result, some of them are closing on Sunday to save fuel for the rest of the week. Because of that, some of those who drove into FINA stations today had to look somewhere else for a tank of gas. And it looks as though those Sunday closings might continue for a long time. How long depends on the company's rationing policies, and a spokesman says that will continue for the next 2 months at least. Jack Hill, Channel 8 News on the Move.
I talked with the mobile dealer and asked him if he expects to get $1 a gallon for gas in sometime in the future. He said he didn't think so, but it'll be so close it won't be funny. The official word on the price of gasoline has not come down from Exxon headquarters as yet, but most of the dealers feel that the price on their pumps will be going up come this Tuesday morning. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move in Fort Worth.
They really have no impact because the causes of our current high prices in meats are due to factors that retailers cannot control, packers cannot control, such as the current costs of operating and the current cost of feed.
Well, we've given a lot of attention, though, to the boycotts.
Yes, but my experience has been, as I travel all over the country, that boycotts die as soon as the leaders of the boycott go 3 or 4 days without publicity.
He's bothering me.
First left hand. I can see we should have done that a little sooner.
Candid camera on TV. I'd say this really wasn't a clinic. Okay. Thank you.
Explains as much as your brother did.
Sure did. You got blood in there? You pick up and I'll wait.
Hey, over here! Hey, over here! Come on.
We'll get some more in a minute.
Well, you were 2 over through 11 today, and you wind up winning it. Did you really think you had a chance when you were 2 over?
Well, it's hard to say, Jim. You know, I was an awfully long ways back at the tanks. I think at that time the leader was about 4 under, really. When I walked off, 11 green, looked at the board, Dixon was 3 and Sykes was 4, and so, you know, that's a long ways to go. But, you know, this game is weird. You just can't ever count yourself out, and I'll admit I didn't think my chances were very good, but I just went to work and tried to make some birdies, and fortunately I made enough.
Hey, we heard your caddy on 18 when you made the birdie putt. The caddy said, "Well, we've won it," and then you turned right around and Sykes came up and looked like he had a chance to steal it, and then the playoff. So I don't know how your caddy felt then. What did he say?
Well, I don't know. He's excited. He hadn't ever worked for somebody that's won before, and he was really excited. We've come close this year. I tied for second at Phoenix, and Crampton made a 20-footer there to beat me by a shot, or, you know, to go in a playoff, or else we'd have had a playoff. But He was excited. It looked pretty good at the time. You know, when I went off 18T, I thought Sykes was 2, and I didn't know he was 3 under until I got on the green. Then I realized I needed to make the putt if, you know, then I'd have a good chance to win, or, you know, pretty awfully good chance at the playoff.
Look good.